stretching. Take hold of your ankles. And notice, to actually reach your ankles, where do you shift your weight on your pelvis? Where does it shift? To the front of your buttocks, to the back of your buttocks? Where does it go? Now, could you find a way of holding your ankles that will enable you to circle your head in the fashion that we've been doing so far? Is there a way of holding your ankles that will enable your pelvis to move, that will enable your spine to change shape, that will enable your chest to move so that your head could make a circle, but you're still holding your ankles? And that's a question really about how can you configure yourself to make as many parts of yourself available as possible. And please start to circle your head in the fashion that you've been doing. So we're not into that part of the lesson where you are just moving the head at the top of the spine. That's it. And as you circle your head, relative to your pelvis, relative to the roundness of your pelvis, to the basin of the pelvis, where is that circle happening? Forwards of the pelvis? Directly above the pelvis? Backwards of the pelvis? Can it go forwards and backwards of the pelvis, even though you're holding onto your ankles? In other words, is there a portion of your head that could go more backwards behind the pelvis, even though you're holding your ankles? And this is not an invitation to torture yourself. It really isn't. Okay, now stop. Lean on the floor behind you with your hands. And with the same sense of exploring that you just did holding your ankles, see if you can configure where you have your arms relative to your torso, where you have your hands relative to your pelvis. That will enable you to make a circle with your head where the pelvis is available, the hip joints are available, the whole length of the spine is available, the chest, the shoulder girdle. Now, if you are all seasoned meditators, able to sustain your attention vividly, clearly, brightly, for long periods of time, we could spend the whole day on this. In 5-minute little sections, coming back to it, coming back to it, coming back to it. And then you discover this, and then you discover that as you shift your attention from one place to another, to another, to another, to another. And having done awareness through movement lessons now for something like 32 years, I can tell you that your ability to sustain attention grows the more you do awareness through movement lessons mindfully. It does. Let that be pause. And in saying that, all I simply mean is you can stay present to the experiences of your body for longer periods of time without losing interest. Without, without starting to think about what's happening or conceptualize about what's happening. You just stay present with what you're experiencing. That's all I mean. Now, please come up to sitting, and this time sit in an asymmetrical position so that your left leg is bent and it's behind you. Your right leg is bent and it's in front of you. The left heel is towards the left buttock. Lean on the floor to your right of yourself with your right hand. And now land your left palm on the very, very top of your head. That part of your head that if you're looking towards a horizon, it's the part of your head that's closest to the sky. If there's a horizon, there's a sky. Now, just check out. How are you resting your hand there? Is it too heavy? Why don't you intentionally make the hand heavy and feel what happens through the rest of you? And now do the opposite. Lighten the hand so much that it's just this little touch on your hair and you really don't get a sense of the hand. So how do you make contact with the top of the head sufficient enough so that you really feel the presence of your hand and the hand feels the presence of the rest of you? Interesting scenario, isn't it? You can feel your hand, and through your hand, you can feel the rest of you. Now, with the tip of your left elbow, start to make a circle in space. And use your arm, in other words, the musculature associated with your arm, to do that. And because your hand and your head are connected, your head will move wherever your hand moves. Now, notice what your method of inquiry is. Are you the person that makes the biggest circle first? Is that your style? And there's nothing wrong with that style. But if that's the only thing that you do, that's a limitation. Because then you'll only find out what's associated with a big circle. Or are you the kind of person that makes such a small circle that no one can see it? And that is also a particular style. And you will discover different things. But it is also a limitation. So my recommendation to you is sometimes make the circle bigger, sometimes make the circle smaller, always within the range of ease and comfort, and find out what kinds of different information do you detect based on the size of the circle you're making. Now, if there's anybody in the room here that's a little bit like me, I can only have my hand up here for, I don't know, maybe 45 seconds, and then I start to get pins and needles in my arm. So please lower your arm, rest whenever you want to, and return. Because everybody has a slightly different structure in terms of the blood vessels that come up through the arm. And so for some of us, when we have our arm up there, the blood gets impinged and you get pins and needles pretty quick. Now, change that over. Intentionally start to move your head in a way that your elbow makes a circle in space. Wow, what a task. It's an amazing cognitive task, isn't it? That you do something with your head and you make a circle at some other part. it's a little bit like writing. You know, when you're using a pen to write with. Well, are you writing with your fingers, or are you writing with the whole arm, or are you writing with your whole self? So you could be drawing a 0 in the air, or you can be drawing the letter O in the air. It's the same thing, still a circle. All right, that's enough. Please be on your back, pause for a while. Let's try the same intention, but in a different position of the body. Could you please roll to one side and come up to standing on both of your knees? So stand on both of your knees, stand upright, and tuck your toes so that the pads of your toes are tucked under. Place the left hand on top of your head. And now, using your arm, draw a circle in space with the tip of your left elbow. Yeah, you're using your left arm. You're standing on your knees. So your pelvis is actually above your knees. Your pelvis is above your knees. That's it. Yes. When your pelvis is kind of free in space like that, in other words, it's no longer in contact with the ground. It's just balancing over these two little balls. Your hip, yeah, the heads of the femurs. That's what you're doing. You're doing this really amazing balancing act. When the pelvis is free, what happens through you as you make that circle with your elbow in space? How does your weight shift from one knee to the other? Where does the pelvis go? Does it go backwards, forwards, sideways? Do you have a preference? Are you always over that right knee? Are you always over the left knee? Change direction. And remember that little anatomical image that I was showing up on the screen, that this could just be a tiny, tiny little movement of the head right at the top of the spine. Okay, please pause. Pause. You'll be coming back up onto your knees in a moment, but pause. That was a pause. You really landed on your pause. I'd like to address a particular idea here, and that is, when should you stop in an awareness through movement lesson? When should you stop? Not permanently. I mean, just stop. Well, of course, if you're tired, you should stop. You should just simply rest, because nothing is more restful than rest. But some of us don't seem to think that. Some of us think we can rest and still do something. No, it's just better to rest. Or after you've done a few movements and you've sensed something, you've noticed, oh, there's this relationship and that relationship, and you just want to reflect on it a few moments. Stop. Reflect on it a few moments. There's no need to continue. You've just detected something that was of interest. That's cool. Stop. Let it land. And if your attention disengages, in other words, you're doing the movements, but you're thinking of your shopping list, or that ache in your back has totally grabbed your attention, stop. There's no need to continue. Do something else until you re-engage with your attention. Really important. And I'm saying this because you are more important than the lesson. Really, you are. You're more important than the lesson. Don't worry, there's another 500, 600 lessons. Plenty of time, no problem. But you're more important than the lesson. Please come up to standing on your knees. Place your left hand on top of your head. And yes, it's still your left hand. And now, start to move your head right at the very top of the spine, around in a little circle, so that your elbow makes a circle. And I really didn't want to say that, but that's what I said. That's what came out. It would have been better to say, move your head in such a way that your elbow makes a circle, not to tell you what to do with your head. Now stop. Take your hand away. Look with your face directly ahead of you towards a horizon. Notice the orientation of your face and your head. Notice that the top of your head is towards the sky. If you have a horizon, you have a sky. Keep your head in that orientation and place your left hand on top of your head. And from here, start to move your head in such a way that you make a circle with your elbow in space. And some of you will find that in this position, even a tiny little movement of the head, right at the very other end of the spine, starts to not only make a circle with the elbow, but you start to experience other circles happening. You start to feel your weight shifting around your knees. And maybe the shape of that weight shift is a circle. You start to feel your pelvis moving, and maybe the way your pelvis moves through space is a circle. So there's something that those Tai Chi masters 2,000 years ago knew about, that most human motion has to do with circles and ellipses and spirals. It's old knowledge, and you can discover it for yourself. You don't have to believe what someone discovered 2,000 years ago. That's enough. Please roll onto your back, rest. Come up to sitting. Sit with your left leg behind. Right leg's in front. Lean on that right hand on the floor to the right of you. Place your left hand on top of your head. And now please move your head so that you can experience your left elbow making a circle in space. So this is a movement of your head in your elbow and other places as well. If your face is always down towards the floor, you've lost your horizon. Change direction. See if you can find that tiny, tiny little movement right in the upper half of the neck. So you don't have to do those big movements of the chest anymore to send the head around the circle. Just think of circling the head so that the elbow makes a little circle in space. And see whether that kind of cascades, that movement of the head, whether it cascades down through the rest of you. Mm-hmm. Now, leave the arms in this configuration. So you'll still be leaning on your right hand. Your left hand will be on top of your head, but change the legs over. Have the right leg behind and the left leg in front, and make yourself little adjustments so that you can still lean on the floor to the right with the right hand. Yep, and the left hand still on top. That's it. And you'll notice that this is a very different scenario for your torso. And begin to make a circle with your head. And notice the shape that your elbow makes in space. Can the left wrist be supple enough to be moved by the movements of your head so that there isn't a stiffness in your wrist? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Put your hand there. Put your hand there. Yeah. Off you go. Yeah, that's the circle. Can you feel that? Yeah. That's all right. It's very clear when something's there, right? Yeah. Beautiful. Very nice. Good. Leave that rest, please. Okay, come back to that same position. Right leg bent behind, left leg in front, leaning on that right hand, left hand on top of head. And now begin to make a circle with the elbow in space. You can shift between having your eyes open, having your eyes closed, having your eyes open, having your eyes closed. Now, stop making a circle with your elbow and think that you want to use that left hand to move your head around in a circle. Imagine that this was someone else's head. Yes. Yeah. Imagine that this was someone else's head and you had your hand on someone else's head and you're trying to suggest through the movement of your hand in your fingers, in your palm, in your wrist, please make a circle with the top of your head. And I said earlier, this is a really strange scenario because you are sending your intention into your hand. So you know what's about to happen and you can predict, oh, this is about to happen. My hand is about to make a circle with my head. And so the rest of you jumps in. Yes, let's do the circle. And before you know it, it's no longer your hand moving your head, it's your head moving your hand. Oops. And this is where the clarity of your intention, attention, is really important. Make sure that it's your hand moving your head. And the head follows like a really good ballroom dancing partner. Someone leads, someone follows. And they both know the dance, by the way. They both know the difference between a waltz and a foxtrot, a tango and a jive. But one leads and one follows. Good, that's enough. Please stop, rest. Please come up to sitting. Have your legs long out in front of you. Take your arms out to the side until they're kind of parallel to the floor. You can use them as little aeroplane wings. Yep. But keep them parallel to the floor. Now shift your weight onto the left buttock and come back, and shift your weight onto the right buttock and come back. And is it possible to do that without banking? You know how when planes make a turn, they bank and they go, can you not bank? Can you just keep the arms parallel to the floor? There we go. One buttock, the other buttock. Now, use your arms however you like as stabilizers, and in one continuous movement, take the right leg behind you and fold the left leg in. In one continuous movement, bend the right leg, take it behind you, fold the left leg in front. And then in one continuous movement, unfold the legs, bring them in front again. Just do that several times. That's it. Your legs can move in tandem, your legs can move separately, whatever it is, but make it one continuous movement, not several stages. Block, 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 block. No, just one. rather than a plock, 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 plock. Sorry about that. Just use them as stabilizers. Yeah, just use them as stabilizers now. I just use that so that you can actually feel your levelness to actually shift your weight. Now you can use them however you like, but don't land them on the ground. Oh yeah, you can do that. Now, when you take the legs behind you like that, when you first start to lift them off the ground, what do you do with your pelvis? Do you stay completely upright or do you let your pelvis roll backwards a little bit? What would happen if you let your pelvis roll backwards a little bit and use that to help to lighten the legs a little bit from the ground? Check for the stiffness in your arms. If there's stiffness in your arms, well, find another way. Leave the arms free. That's it. Your feet even don't have to be on the ground if you don't. If you can do that, yeah, you can just lift your feet completely off and take them. Oh, why don't you take them all the way around to the other side? Yeah, so from the right, go forward and then take them all the way around to the left. That's it. And now just from the left to the front and then from the left to the front, just that side. Left, front, left, front. You can have whatever timing you like between the legs. They don't have to travel together. But as much as you can, make it one continuous motion until you arrive at the front and then until you arrive at the back. And now do the complete switch from the left right around to the right and from the right all the way around to the left. That's it. Oh, have you stiffened your arms? Have your arms suddenly become like iron rods? Let them be soft. Can they be soft? Can they be supple? Good. Please pause. I reckon that might be a good lesson if you're trying to teach core strength, don't you? Yeah. Core stability, yep. Core control, yep. Tick, tick, tick. There it is, an awareness through movement lesson. Boom, boom. You know, a lot of these moves that you're doing now come straight out of judo. In judo, there's a great deal of import put on being able to use the pelvis as a major mobilizer. To input power into the limbs, to input power into the legs. We've talked a little bit about that last week, and here it is back again. Please come up to sit again. Start off with your arms out to the sides as a starting place. Have your legs bent in front of you with the soles of your feet on the floor or the back of your heels on the floor, whichever you prefer. And now lift both legs from the floor and put them down. No hands. See, you don't need to hook your big toe. This is the hooking your big toe lesson without hooking your big toe. You do realize that, don't you? Yeah. So you've done all these movements with your legs already. You did them last week. You just had contact with your hands, that's all. Now, in one go, could you take both legs around to the right? That's it. Come back to the middle so that feet are off the ground or the heels are just lightly touching, and then take both legs around to the left. Beautiful. Keep doing that for a little while. And you'll notice you shift your weight onto all different parts of your pelvis. Sometimes it's towards 6 o'clock behind you. Sometimes it's towards 9 o'clock. Sometimes it's towards 3. It changes. Yes, that was a definite decision. No, that was a definite decision. Now, this is managing your body weights. This is a really dynamic process of managing the weight of your head, the weight of your pelvis, the weight of your trunk, the weight of your legs, very dynamically. And just like everything else, it's a learned skill. You learned it around the age of 1. Without that skill, you would not be able to stand. Oh, well, 13. Some of us were 2 years old. That's enough. Stop. Pause for a little while. Okay, please come up to sitting. Have your legs bent, the right leg behind, the left leg in front. Have the left hand on top of your head. Have your right hand any way you like. Now, start to use your hand to make a very little circle with your head. In other words, your hand is moving or inviting your head to move. Now, when you detect in yourself, yes, that is a nice quality. I like that quality. That's a good quality. I can sustain that. Start to have in your mind, and I'm serious about this, start to have in your mind the idea of taking your legs and putting them to the other side. Just have the idea. And notice whether thinking that idea already stiffens your neck. That was great. Yeah. So there you are, circling, using your hand to circle your head, and then you form the intention, oh, I'd like to take my legs around to the other side. At that moment you think that, do you stiffen your neck? Does the act of just imagining that cause you to start to change the tone of your muscles through your body? So could you begin to explore that possibility, please? Of continuously circling your head using your hand, just like you're doing, and taking your legs around to the other side. And then I know that some of you will be sneaky, so I'll let you be sneaky for a little while. Now, if that is a difficulty in terms of you find that the wrists stiffen up, well, just return to the idea of moving the elbow in a circle. Use that. And if that doesn't work for you, then return to the idea of making a circle with the head and letting the elbow move in space. So whichever of those three seems to work for you, use that, but the head will be making a circle. Right at the very, very top of the spine. That's all that's needed. Just that freedom right at the very top of the spine. Now, keep on exploring this possibility and change hands over whenever you want. So sometimes with the left hand on top, sometimes with the right hand on top. And please, at that moment that you do change hands, just re-establish the freedom of motion of your head on the top of the spine, so that the head can just be making this little circle, or the elbow could be making a little circle, or the hand could be inviting a little circle. Change the hands whenever you want, rest whenever you want, come back to it when you want. But keep exploring, stay engaged. Now, you know that sneaky thing I mentioned? Some of you do half a circle and take the legs to one side. Can you do several circles for each swapping of the legs? Oh, bugger. I told you you'd be sneaky. Yeah. So, you know, some people will go, woof, and there they are. And woof, and there they are. But can you do several circles and make one change? One change of the legs for at least 2 complete circles. But that's not an order. Because if you can find that, that is the kind of differentiation, the kind of functioning through your skeleton that is of great service. That is your biological inheritance. This ability for your head to look in one direction while you're running in the other. Good survival skill. Ask any footballer. Yeah? For those of you that follow rugby, you know, the guy's running forward and then they have to receive a pass behind them. They have to be able to turn their head and keep running forward. This is a really important differentiation. If you're crossing a busy road and you're getting across that busy road, you want to be able to keep walking or running forwards as you look left and right. Really important. Yeah. No. You go ahead. That's it. Beautiful. Yes, exactly what you did. Exactly what you did. Beautiful. That was nice to watch, Invader. Yeah. So you can see there's several circles of the head for one motion around. And when you start with, it might feel quite clunky. You might hold your breath. But over time, if you keep taking care of yourself, going slowly, that's what you achieve. A continuous motion of the head while moving those very large parts of you, the legs and the pelvis. Wow. Remember, rest when you need to, change hands when you need to, go slow when you need to, go fast when you want to. Because for some of you, this will happen a lot easier if you circle your head a little faster rather than doing it slowly. And I haven't mentioned speed of movement yet, but that's an option. Some of you will have greater clarity when the head movement, the head circling, is a little faster. Yeah, that's nice. There we go. That's beautiful. Yeah, look. Yeah. Now, those of you who want to reference this, this is party trick number 763. Right? Hey, look what I can do. Now, one more element. Please keep on exploring. One more element. There'll be a moment during this movement when the top of your head is actually further away from the ceiling. And there'll be a moment when your head is closer to the ceiling. So literally, your head will be going closer to the floor, higher to the floor. As your spine rounds, your head lowers. As your spine extends, your head raises. So don't think you have to keep your head at the same level all the time. And because of the complexity of this movement, your attention, that soft kind of attention, soft, relaxed, but really sharp, that you know what's going on. Are you sure that you're making circles as you change over? Or does the circle stop at a certain moment? Is there continuous motion, or does the circle stop? Oop, it stopped. Oop, it stopped. Oh, yeah, that was better. That's better. A little bit lumpy, but good. Remember the process of making a cake. When you start to make a cake, it always starts lumpy. Thank God for mix masters. I'd have turned it up there. I did. I turned it off. So now let's just return to the beginning of the lesson and see if something has changed, either in your perception or in the way you move or in your understanding. Please come up to sit, have the soles of your feet together. Lean on the floor behind you with your hands. And a few times, please make a circle. Circle your head in that circular, rolling kind of fashion that you've been doing. And notice if something else offers itself throughout the middle of you, in the trunk area. Change direction when you want. Up to you. But all that business of rolling the head and changing your legs, has that changed anything about how you perceive the middle of yourself being involved? Good. Now, please change the positioning of your hands. Take hold of your ankles in front. And once again, roll your head through a circling space using as much of yourself as possible, and notice if something else is more available to you in terms of your perception, your understanding, the parts of yourself that can be involved more. Because some of us, learn in different ways. Some of us get the idea and then the movement catches up. Some of us get the movement, but we really don't get an idea of how it's happening. And then the idea catches up. All right. Let that be, please. Come up to standing. Notice what it's like to stand. And look around yourself a little bit. Look left, look right, look up, look down. Feel the nature of the weight transfer over your feet and how your pelvis responds to the directions in which you point your nose. So now it's definitely time to point your nose in the direction of food. So please have some lunch, and we'll come back at 1:55.